Hey there, and welcome back to Pest Control Legends. I'm your host, Danny Leibrandt, and today I'm with Allan Draper. If you don't already know Allan, he's the co-founder of Proof Pest Control, which has 14 locations in 7 states, along with hundreds of employees and sales representatives. As of now, Proof is currently valued at approximately $100 million, which is just insane. Congratulations on that, Allan. He's also the founder of Lizard SEM, a marketing agency for pest control and other service businesses. Additionally, he's the founder of Bug Bucks, a podcast and community helping pest control owners grow their companies. Overall, Allan owns over 25 businesses, many in pest control and home services, and he's built multiple companies past the $1 million mark. So if you want to build a $1 million pest control company and beyond, this episode will give you the exact mindset and strategies Allan used to build his pest control empire. Now, without further ado, thanks for coming on the show, Allan.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks, Danny.
For sure, man. So the first thing that I wanted to cover is, if you were going to start a pest control company today, where would you start? So I believe you started Proof about 20 years ago. I'm sure the landscape looked different. I believe you were really heavy on door-to-door. How would you start a pest control company today? What would that look like?
So I started Proof 10 years ago.
Oh, 10 years ago. Okay, my bad.
No, that's okay. So where geographically would I start it?
No, like how would you start out? Maybe what would the first 30 to 90 days look like?
I mean, there's got to be an emphasis on marketing, right? Early on, we got to figure out how we're going to get sales. A lot of people that start businesses don't realize that that's how you get your company going. And it's weird because a lot of entrepreneurs, people starting businesses, they almost feel guilty about it. They're like, why should we focus on sales? We should focus on our service and providing the, best customer service and the best, service at their house and all these things. And it's like, no, you have to have revenue or you're going to fail.
Yeah.
So, so in those early days, it's like, I don't necessarily believe in business plans. I think they're fine, but they have so much fluff and so much guesswork. But I do like marketing plans. So that's going to be the focus. I'm going to look at controlling costs. It's going to depend how much money I have. Do I have $5,000? Do I have $100,000? Do I have $1 million? It's like those are completely different scenarios, and my strategy is going to be way different. But I think the logistics aren't too complicated. Getting a license, getting a website set up, stuff like that. But I'm going to be really asking questions about what does a marketing plan look like? What are the strengths that I as a business owner add? And, what are the things that I can leverage to get this thing off the ground?
Okay, cool. So let's say you have about $10,000 to play with. Where should you be putting your money to generate leads?
So if I have $10,000 for marketing?
Yeah, sure. Let's say that.
If I have $10,000 for marketing, I'm going to spend it on AdWords, most likely. That's not enough to get like a referral campaign up and going. You probably don't want to mess with SEO at that stage. I'm probably just going to, I need every marketing dollar that I spend turn into some ROI on the top line.
Okay, awesome. And would that just be AdWords, or would there, maybe you're doing Yelp or LSAs, would there be anything else going into that?
There's some people that do, I consider LSAs like they've become, one and the same for us. LSAs, although LSAs are more expensive, but they're better leads. Mm-hmm. So it would definitely be between Google AdWords and LSAs. There are some companies that do well on Yelp, but it takes a lot to get that stone rolling down the mountain, a lot of effort. And I would not recommend that early on. That's not where I'm going to spend $10,000. You need a bunch of reviews. You need, a really strong profile, good response system. I think there's just too many cracks early on for that type of marketing.
Interesting. Is that the same with all lead generation platforms like that? So Thumbtack, Angie, Home Advisor, House, all those other platforms, probably not worth it to start out?
I mean, I don't like those other platforms, period.
Okay.
Thumbtack is okay if you're at the very bottom in terms of pricing. and somebody can respond immediately.
Mm.
Those aren't great leads. Angie's, I don't even know. I'm not familiar with them anymore. Like, we used to use them, and I don't think the volume was there. The quality wasn't there. So, um, don't early on, especially, don't spread yourself too thin. And this is true even further down the road. Like, get really good at 1, 2, 3 tops marketing strategies. Don't try to do everything everybody else does just because you're hearing they're having success with it. Because it's most likely that they're having success because they've put the time and resources into it to become successful. So I would really just limit it to AdWords, and I would get some help. $10,000, man. That's not a lot for marketing. Early on, marketing's like the black hole of a company.
Mm.
You need to go through a learning process with Google, and your cost per customer acquisition, your cost per lead is going to be higher early on, and you really need to trust the process and continue to invest in it. And it's over the long run where you see those returns.
So maybe for some context, what was the growth like for your company? So you started Proof 10 years ago. How long did it take you to get to maybe that first 100K and then that first million and then 10 million?
So it's not really fair, but my company did door to door. So there's a lot of folks out there that they don't have a door to door team. So we spent a lot of time recruiting door to door reps, and we didn't have a huge team. We had, I don't know, 8 or 9 guys our first year. And we opened our doors in March of 2015 in Detroit. And people that are familiar with Detroit know that March is still cold. That year it snowed on Mother's Day, if I remember correctly. So it's still, but from our official opening of March 17th, which I think is what it was, till the end of the year, I think we did between $600,000 and $700,000 in revenue.
Wow. And that was mostly door to door, or was there anything else?
We did start doing AdWords early on, and we were using Angie's List at that point, and we've always been focused on referrals. But I would say, 80 to 90% of that is door to door revenue.
Okay, awesome. Do you still recommend door to door now, and do you still use it for your company?
We do, but we do most. It's been a few years since we've hired a marketing company, so an outside marketing company, which we have done in the past. But our teams, they're smaller now than at our peak, but we still do it. It's honestly like any other type of marketing. You got to take the goods with the bads. Door to door, the benefits of door to door are a few. One is your risk is fairly low because you have your compensation structure is based on them meeting certain criteria. They don't just need to sign them up. They need to receive a certain number of services and be active as of a certain date in order to receive a commission. And if they're not, they get 0 commission on that. Now, we try to treat people fairly, especially, our returning reps and folks that have worked hard. But it's not just, hey, they take a service, you pay out 100%. So that's one thing. Your risk is fairly low in losing money. You get to choose where your customers come from by sending reps to a specific area. You have some controls with Google AdWords and geofencing and other things, but man, we'll have somebody that's driving through one of our markets that are, driving through Detroit on their commute back to Chicago, and they'll call us because they search pest control near me or whatever. So there's some issues there. So you get to be more specific with your targeting. I think the other thing is just route density. Nothing better. Obviously, like, you're literally going door to door, and the more customers you get in a neighborhood, the more easy it is to sell a door to door account. So there's that. The volume is fantastic. We see these companies blow up with door to door. the downsides are, they can be pretty expensive. If you hire a marketing company, you're going to be spending 90+% of the first year's contract value on it. And some companies they don't have the finances for that. And you can't just rely, if you're paying 90%, obviously you can't rely on the revenue that's coming in to pay the sales reps. It's not enough because you're paying for all your fixed expenses, right? And then you also have your variable expenses that don't include the sell, the vehicle, cost of gas, the products, all those other things. So that's one of the downsides is how much it costs. It's hard. Door-to-door is hard. Door-to-door reps will say crazy things that people don't like getting their doors knocked on. And if you don't have an experienced sales rep, something that could be de-escalated turns into the cops getting called and the neighbors being warned and all these things. So there's definitely some goods and bads, but we're going to continue to do it for the foreseeable future for sure.
Okay, sweet. I'm curious, what trends have you seen in the pest control industry in the past 10 years or so? Like, LSAs have become a big thing. Most people are using those. What trends have you seen overall? Is it getting more competitive? Tell me all about it.
I think where it's getting competitive is with technicians. I feel like hiring and retaining top-level technicians and technical help, I think that is one of the most difficult parts of the game right now. At least it's something that we really struggle with, to be frank. And in terms of marketing and finding customers and closing them, I'm noticing trends and contract values are getting higher. I think LSA is going to reach a tipping point. They're getting really expensive. Everybody wants them, and Google's going to have to find another solution. They're getting so expensive in some markets that they're getting to be up there with what it costs on the doors for revenue.
Wow.
So you really have to focus on close rate. What else in the industry? I feel like it's more saturated, but I feel like pest control is becoming more well known than it was a decade ago. I saw a huge change when COVID happened. The demand went through the roof. That year, AdWords dropped through the floor. Despite everything that was going on in the world, crazy time, pest control industry absolutely smashed it. So, but those changes have kind of eased. Inflation really affected the pest control industry like it did every industry. Fuel was more expensive. Products were more expensive. Cost of labor went through the roof. And so in order to keep up with that trend, you had to consistently make price increases, which some smaller companies aren't doing. We have two types of price increases. We have a price increase that will happen every year for a certain percentage or group of our customer base. And then we also have kind of reactionary price increases, like what happened post-COVID when vehicles were more expensive, everything was more expensive, to make sure to keep up with that. And we're seeing that across the board in all sorts of industries where it's like stuff's just way more expensive now. So I feel like there's a trend with limited marketing right now. I feel like, and I don't think it's a demand thing caused by competition. I think it's larger companies wanting more. So I feel like we're the same number of companies are fighting over probably an increase in leads, but I feel like there's a little pressure from the larger companies, the $100 million plus companies.
Interesting. Okay. And then I'm also curious, where do you think brand plays into all of this? Do you think people, like, especially, let's start out with a smaller company. Should a smaller company that's at, $10K a month even be worried about brand, or should it just be, they get to that, 50, $100K a month and then they can start worrying about it?
They shouldn't worry about it except for two things. Their service, because that becomes part of their brand. We don't have really a storefront. And so our storefront is, what does the technician look like? What's the service like? And what does the truck look like when they show up? I'm not a fan of blowing a bunch of money on wrapping full wraps and spending all this money early on. Simple decals that look nice and clean. Don't spend, I was talking to this guy and he spent $50,000 for a logo and brand development plan from a designer. I was like, okay, you just wasted that. So you just make it up with your service and the types of people that you're hiring, how they're taking care of your customers, and online reviews. Make sure you're getting, this is super important, especially early on. One of my markets has thousands and thousands of 5-star reviews, and it has a 5-star overall rating on Google. There's not much that somebody could do. Even if you got 100 1-star reviews, I still don't think it would do much. So make sure that you're building that base of 5-star reviews. Those are the only two things until at least $1 million in rev that you're worried about with brand.
How should people go about getting reviews? What have you seen works best?
What works best is a technician face-to-face with a customer. So, but the company needs to create a program. And a lot of times we're talking to folks that they're doing their own services, right? Solo operators. And so what you need to do is you show up, you say, hey, I'm Allan, here to take care of the service for you. Walk through a few things, see if they have any questions. Hey, Susan, when I'm done, if you feel like I did a good job on your service, how would you feel about leaving me a 5-star review on Google? It would mean a lot to my small company. And very few people are going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. You'll have some weirdos out there, but then Allan does the service, comes back. Hey, Susan, took care of this. I noticed there's a wood pile up next to the house. We might want to watch that for ants or get that removed away, whatever, right? I'm including some pictures in the service report. Here's a link right here. What's the best phone number for you? Text the link over and stand right there. Walk them through it. Hey, you go to my profile, see that button right there that says leave a review. Can you click that for me? And just early on, I know that seems like a lot of time, and it is, but you need to get that base of 5-star reviews because one 1-star review causes a lot of damage at that level. Once you have a base of, I'd probably do that till I have at least 50. Then I would start using more automated forms of asking for reviews and doing internal technician programs where they're rewarded or incentivized for getting good reviews.
Yeah, that's typically what I recommend when I'm talking to companies. I usually recommend 100. That's a pretty good threshold, and there's a proven boost that you get at 10 and then 100. So there's also just like a kind of a psychological impact, and I've seen that a lot of companies are stuck at like the 25 to 50 range. So if you can separate yourself out from those, and you don't have to be in like the 1,000, 5,000 review range, but if you can just separate yourself out from the small guys, then that makes a big difference too. So yeah, like you're talking, let's continue with that. Once you're starting to grow bigger, and now maybe it's harder to maybe do the face-to-face or whatever it is. But what does that look like of now review generation becomes more automated?
So we're running programs with the technicians. So there's campaigns where they get incentivized, and we have competitions, and every 5-star review that we get goes out on whatever text or communication platform that you have with all the technicians. We want to make sure that we're celebrating that. I mean, good reviews are awesome anyway, because it separates what we're doing with our jobs from the monetary aspect. Look, we all got to make money and put food on the table, but high performance comes from non-monetary purposes. And I know most people would disagree with me, and those people are just wrong. The studies show that once you make a certain amount of money, your performance no longer changes based off of making more money. So I would definitely make that part of your culture. But then there's review systems out there that help aggregate reviews, but we've always done it with just a focus on it, campaigns with technicians, and then review links in pretty much every communication that we send out, whether it's a reminder email, text follow up, a service report. We're asking for reviews and we're asking for referrals.
Love that. And you said there were rewards. Like, what does that look like? A gift card at the end of each month or something like that?
Yeah, so early on, we have stages, and I need to check with what Proof is doing now, but this is years ago. I'm not super involved in the day to day, and most of our branches we're not really running review campaigns anymore because we don't need to. We're still requesting them via all the automated tools, but we're not. It's a different type of intensity when you have over 1,000 reviews, which I don't think all of our offices do, but all of them are several hundred. But what we would do is they would get paid a certain amount up until we got a certain number of reviews. So, and we would pay, and I think you have to be careful, especially with Yelp, because you're not allowed to incentivize them for reviews or something stupid. But, so $10 until the branch hits 50 reviews. And then after that, it's $5. And then after that, actually, I think it's still $5. I don't know. So something like that, where it's like this emphasis on getting us to that threshold of 50, or like you said, 100, which you would know better than I do. So getting to that threshold and just continuing that culture of celebrating those reviews, even though they're making less per review, or there's all sorts. That's how we did it. But there's all sorts of things you could have, drawings. You could buy larger prizes and give them away at company meetings. There's lots of cool things that you could do just within the culture to acknowledge and celebrate getting reviews. There's this thing called cognitive dissonance, and what it is basically we try to act consistent with who we are. So what happens when you give a company 5-star review? It's important for the public aspect of it, the social aspect. But it's also important for retaining that customer, because if I give somebody a 5-star review, the next time something happens, I'm not just going to cancel because it's like, dang, I gave these guys a 5-star review. And you'll see sometimes in the reviews, like people updating a review or whatever because of this issue. So it's also don't think of it just in terms of brand. Think of it in terms of, which I guess could kind of be related, but think of it in terms of I'm using this I'm retaining my customers, right? This is a retention tool for my customers, because the more reviews they give me, the better reviews, the better details, the more likely they're going to not just stick with my pest control company, but also refer us.
Yeah, no, it's insane. I keep getting reminded of how important reviews are and how they play into every single aspect. It helps ranking, it helps conversion, it helps retention. It's like every single aspect. The reviews just help so much. So I'm a big advocate for those as well. Again, for the ranking aspect, but also for all of the lagging indicators as well. Another thing I wanted to cover is, I know you've got tons of companies and home services and pest control, and that you grew your pest control company from nothing. And I know you're also fairly familiar with other pest control companies in the space and kind of what they're dealing with. What would you say is kind of the main problem that pest control companies are dealing with and maybe not getting right? Is there one thing, it's like they're not hiring right, or they're not doing marketing right? What would you say is the main problem?
I don't know if there's like a main problem. There's a lot of commonalities that I see.
Yeah.
A lot of pest control companies don't know their numbers. They don't keep books. They don't think it's important. And that's one thing. I think liability. I think their agreements with their customers and their waivers with their customers aren't solid enough. Pest control companies make mistakes with their personnel a lot. They lose really good people. Money management, cash management, they don't know where to put their money. All of these, by the way, are very complicated issues.
Yeah.
So it's not like, some type of indictment on certain owners. This is, next level stuff in the business world. So, I mean, you get those things right in marketing, making sure that you're getting an ROI, what your cost per customer acquisition is with a specific marketing strategy. Those types of things are, I think, common problems that, companies have and struggle with.
talk to me about getting your books right. That was the first thing you mentioned. What does that look like? Is there a specific software you need to use, or what exactly do people need to do?
I mean, there's not a specific software. There's a few that are common. QuickBooks online is a great tool. It's not the most sophisticated thing, but I think it does the job. The most important part is getting your chart of accounts set up correctly early, and then making sure that the transactions are categorized correctly. Early on, that's something that an owner could handle, and it's not a bad idea for them to do it because they'll see like, hey, where's this money going? They'll see a charge and catch mistakes, and but after a while, after you get fairly large and you're spending, several $100,000 to millions of dollars a month, it gets to be too much. But number one, find a tool. QuickBooks is cheap. There's an inherent limit in there. There's things that it can't do, but QuickBooks, get your chart of accounts set up properly, and then make sure that stuff's being sent to the right category. And I think the fourth step would be making sure that you understand how to read them. There's three basic reports or financial statements that people talk about: the P&L or cash flow statement, your balance sheet, and and your cash flow statement. Those are the three. And I spend most of my time on the P&L and balance sheet. So the P&L is just like, hey, over whatever given period of time, if it's the last month, it shows you how much money you brought in minus all of your expenses, and then your bottom line is your net revenue. Not complicated. And then your balance sheet is going to be your assets, your liabilities, and your equity. So assets minus liabilities equals your equity. It's just like personal net worth, right? So if we take everything that we own, our house, and we minus our liabilities, we get our net worth. It's the same thing for a company, and that's on the balance sheet.
Got it. And what margin should pest control owners be looking for? I've heard about 20 to 25%, but what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, probably in that range is really healthy. It depends on growth. There's this rule of 40, right? Where it's like, hey, if I'm growing at 20%, I should be net profiting 20%, or some mixture, right? 30-10 or whatever. I've seen better numbers than that. I had a branch one year that profited over 50%. When you profit that much, it's not always a good thing because you could be not sufficiently investing in your company, updating equipment, vehicles, investing in your personnel, that you won't see that year, but you'll see it in subsequent years. So, I think it depends on the goals of the company, but yeah, 20-25%, that seems kind of about standard. If you're growing at a nice clip, don't beat yourself up if you profited 10 or 17%, especially if growth is your goal. You want to be careful so you have enough cash, for a rainy day, and that you don't grow yourself to death. But yeah, I would say in that range. But I like to see our branches over 30%.
Okay, awesome. And then let's cover hiring. So you've hired many people at this point. I'm sure you have some great insight into it. Maybe let's start with technicians. So what technicians should you be hiring? What are you looking for in technicians? What's the hiring process? Just give me kind of like a overall summary of that.
So generally with people, you're looking for somebody that's just a good person, that's not bouncing from job to job. So you want to look at their work longevity. A lot of people in our industry are so focused on their experience and their knowledge. And that's important, but it's not as important as them being a good person and just doing what they say they're going to do. We've found some of our best technicians outside of pest control. We've trained them on the pest control, and a lot of them have become our leaders. One of our best leaders is a former police officer. So you can, you have to think outside the box. It really bothers me when they're like, yeah, this technician has 10 years experience. So I'm going to keep putting up with the bull crap, not showing up on time, being rude to customers. It's like, bro, you got this all wrong. Now, keep in mind that my company is generally recurring revenue, residential, single-family home maintenance. We're not, we have some commercial jobs, we have some termite stuff, but we're not out, servicing, the World Trade Center in downtown New York for rats or whatever. So we're not. We do have issues, but it's not, some commercial jobs in New York City, and one of our branches is on Long Island. We don't service the city though, but some of those, man, you need those, those rough guys that have 30 years experience using different chemicals and baits and traps and stuff. And so it really depends on your business, but focus on that person. Try to find out what type of person they are. Because you can help them become a better pest control technician, better with customer service, even to some degree. You're not going to change too much the type of person that they are.
Awesome. And then what about other positions that might be, office manager, that might be sales rep? What about these other positions? What are you looking for in those? Is it the same principle of good people, or is there something else?
No, I mean, that's across the board. But then we're starting to look at, like, what's the skill set? Am I trained to, cram a round peg into a square hole, or whatever the analogy is?
Yeah.
Like, and we've done that. We hired somebody as an outside sales rep that was, he liked to keep to himself, and he struggled putting pressure on people and closing deals. And so you do want to make sure that, and some people can be trained, but you want to make sure that they have that personality. And I think the bigger thing is, and this is also kind of a general recommendation, is that you make sure that there's a match between, there's this crossover between what the company's trying to accomplish and what the individual is trying to accomplish. Not enough companies do this. So I like the question in an interview, hey, John, how does Proof help you to get where you want to be personally, on a personal level, over the next 5 years? I love that question. And sometimes they'll give you an answer that they think that you're looking for. And once you hire them, you continue to ask that question, like, hey, how does Proof help to get, it's not just like a sales pitch. It's, how do we continue to align interests? And that's how you get good people to stick around, and they work for more than just money. They work because they have a purpose. Like, it's hard to work for a company that's getting a bunch of one-star reviews. Customers are always complaining. You don't want to do that. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It's like, man, I want to work for a company I believe in and trust, and that has similar values. So make sure that there's some discussion about that. We also make sure that we lead talking about our core values. What are some of the things that matter to us above all else? And do their interests and their, do their characteristics align with those core values and those, that culture of the company? It sounds cheesy, I know. It sounds like wishy-washy or whatever, like I'm just saying this because there's a camera in front of me, but that's what we do.
What are your core values for Proof?
So we have a few. We try to keep them simple. So number one is our safety. I can sleep at night if I lose money, if, don't have a great month marketing, whatever. I struggle when I have a technician that got hurt, or they got in an accident and hurt somebody else, or, so safety is important to us. Making sure that we have this attitude of gratitude, that people are enjoying what they're doing, and that they're, thankful for, everything that they have. We have a 501c3, so we have a nonprofit portion of Proof called Proof Gives Back, where we engage in different types of community volunteer work. So that's part of it. So yeah, we kind of keep it simple, and I'm sure I'm forgetting. I think we have 4, and I mentioned 2, but they're kind of eluding me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned reviews again, because again, part of reviews is also hiring. Like, people want to work with a great company. If you have horrible reviews, then no one wants to work with you. And I know a lot of people like to put emphasis on like the logo or the word mark or the banner, but the reviews, I mean, I'd say that's at least half of branding. That's who you are. You could have like the worst logo in the world. And we actually talked about on our last podcast, like, you know, we are talking about you don't have to have a great name. Like Rent-A-Kill doesn't have a great name. They're $1 billion company. But it's more so about what you stand for. And I mean, what you stand for is very, very clearly demonstrated in your reviews. So love that as well. And then what does that look like as you start to grow? What positions are you looking for? So obviously you have your first initial technicians, but what are some of those other positions that you're looking to fill?
So I always say that when you're growing a company, first you do what you have to do, then you do what you're good at, then you do what you want to do. So when you're starting a company, your job is to replace yourself in those categories. So the first step would get from what you have to do to what you're good at. So if you come from a technical background and you're good at solving complicated problems, then you're going to want to hire technicians and office staff so that your focus can be solving those problems. And then whatever, other tasks that you have. When you start a company, you do everything. Mm-hmm. And so you have to decide, hey, how is my time best spent? And try to, find time to do those things. The book, Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, talks about this, right? He has the analogy of the local baker, and she's the best cupcake maker in town, and starts a business and ends up not ever spending time baking cupcakes because she's busy paying bills, ordering equipment, hiring people, marketing, all these things, right? So, first hires a technician, no doubt. I guess there could be some scenario out there where that's not true. But most likely it's a technician. Get yourself out of the truck. At least limit the time that you're in a truck. Limit that windshield time. And then the second would be some type of administrative help that can juggle quite a few different things. That administrative person, we need them to be able to pay, run payroll, answer phones, maybe order supplies and chemicals or whatever. We need them being able to do quite a few things. So that you can, focus on growing the company.
Awesome. Now I'm curious, so we talked about what software for books, and you said QuickBooks. What about other software that you're using? Is there like a go-to CRM or other platforms that you're using?
So Proof uses QuickBooks. All of them have their strengths and weaknesses. There's times that I love field routes. There's times that I really, really don't. It's better. You want to make sure that it fits with where you want to be. A lot of people there's some cheap options out there and that focus on smaller companies, even have free versions. And actually I think Field Routes does, but it's, very low level. Like you have 100 customers or less, and I don't know what it is, but switching platforms is so difficult. We did it 8 years ago, and it was a nightmare. And we were a fraction of the size we are now. So don't just try to pinch a few pennies. Like, base it off of like, hey, am I going to be able to grow my company with this? And even though it's a more expensive platform, you might be able to make that make sense. But if there's, because that switch cost us in terms of downtime, in terms of issues, and had to have cost us $100,000. So
wow.
So we'll never switch again. Unless something catastrophic happens. So keep that in mind. Don't just go for the cheapest software. Go for the software that you want to use the rest of your company's life. That's the way to think about it. And I know that sounds like dramatic, but those types of systemic changes in companies, they're so difficult. Dude, I don't even like changing bank accounts anymore.
Yeah.
It's such a headache. So just be really careful about that and commit, right? Be able to solve problems with your vendors. Don't just think, oh, I'm the one that writes a check, I'm out of here. You're going to cause more headaches than problems you're going to solve.
Okay, sweet. Got it. And something else I wanted to ask, which we touched on a little bit earlier, is the difference between residential and commercial. Do you think that people should be pursuing commercial accounts or just residential? What's kind of the split there? What do you think?
I mean, it depends on their model. There's some commercial companies out there that absolutely crush it. I am not interested. The commercial accounts that we have pretty much fallen into our laps, which we're happy to have, and we do a great job taking care of them. But you know, commercial can get really crazy. Like if you start getting into like food handling, businesses or schools or daycare, stuff like that, regulations change. And, you know, so in pest control, people think, oh, I'm going into pest control, I can do everything in pest control. It's like, no, you can't. Like I own a law firm. We don't practice every area of law, of course. Like how do you get good at something if you're trying to do everything? And that applies to pest control too. So find out, in his book, Good to Great, Collins talks about, he talks about this intersection of three things, and it's what drives your economic engine, what are you passionate about, and what can you be the best in the world about at. And the intersection of those three circles is where you want your business to be. So that's what I would start. And you can always add lines of business later. Although I wouldn't until you're doing several million. Everyone starts a business. Not everyone. Most people start a business. They have shiny object syndrome. Grass is greener. Hey, I'm going to add commercial now. I'm going to do mosquito. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Like they're just creating more problems for themselves. They're not growing. Or I'm going to add a branch in a different location. And it's like, just grow where you're at and do the thing that you're good at. And that's the best way to grow. Don't turn away the stuff that you're getting referred or whatever, as long as it's not too complicated and out of your league. But focus on one thing and do it, and you'll build a nice company for yourself.
You've got to niche down and don't fall into shiny object syndrome. That goes back to what we were talking about with marketing, of everyone trying every single different marketing channel. It's like, no, dude, just like pick 1, 2, maybe 3 things and go all in on those. So absolutely love that as well. I'm glad that you brought up Good to Great, because I actually wanted to ask you about books as well. I see that you have a huge shelf behind you of all kinds of books. What books would you recommend to pest control owners that are just starting out or maybe in the growing phase now?
So if we're talking about just business books, I have a few favorites that I like. Tony Hsieh, founder of Zappos, which sold to Amazon for billions. And by the way, Tony Hsieh created the idea of free returns because he created an online shoe company. And so that's called Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. What else? Good to Great. Rory Vaden wrote a book called Procrastinate on Purpose. Dan Sullivan wrote a book called Who Not How. I already mentioned Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. Yeah, I think that's a great start. I'm missing some, but yeah.
Awesome. No, that's a good list. And overall, and kind of to wrap up here, how important has learning been in your growth? Have you been, because I mean, you've got all the books behind you. Are you spending a lot of time learning, or do you think people should start out more acting? What is the kind of the differentiation between those two?
I mean, I think it's the chicken and egg thing a little bit, but you, as a business owner, you're either going to learn on your own or you're going to be forced to learn through negative experiences. So, and there's probably both of that going on, both of those two things going on at the same time. So I always say that a business will never get above the level of its leader, which is usually the owner, especially for small businesses. So the more you grow individually and as a human, the more your company's going to grow. But you know, early on, I don't know if you like fake it, right? I don't know if you fake it till you make it, because people can sniff that out. But you almost need to have this attitude of, you know, hey, Susan, I don't know. That's an amazing question. I don't know, but you have my word that I'm going to find somebody that knows, and we're going to solve this problem for you. So it's not so much faking it or acting as it is confidence. Like, have that confidence, not in your ability to know everything, but in your ability to figure it out. That's a great trait of an entrepreneur, because you're going to have things that happen to you that no one has had happen to them before. And if you have this attitude of, I may not know everything, but I have the determination, the confidence to figure it out, that'll take you a long way.
Awesome. And yeah, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Do you have any final thoughts? Maybe just like some closing words, any advice that you just want to give to any pest control owner out there that's looking to grow their company?
You know, my mom always used to tell us to enjoy the journey, and it used to drive me crazy, right? But it's so deep, especially for people starting businesses. And I'm the same way, trust me. It was always like, oh, and as soon as we get to $1 million in rev, I'm going to be happy. And as soon as I start making $1 million a year, I'm happy. As soon as it's like, no, man, like the good days are the days that you're going through right now. Those early days. And the reason why they're good is because you're growing and learning so much. So there's nothing wrong with having goals and ambitions. That's not what I'm saying, but enjoy the path, because I used to think that the destination, as cliche as this sounds, I was always like, yeah, the destination, that's what I'm after. Then I realized, like, after I got there over and over again, it's like, man, it was actually really cool. Like, those people that I crossed paths with that I may not talk to anymore for one reason or another, we split ways. They went to a different industry or started their own business or whatever. Like that journey, those hard moments, those hard conversations when you're like, sometimes even in tears, trying to figure out if your business is going to survive. Trust me, in 5-10 years, you're going to look back on those experiences and realize that was the good stuff. The hard stuff is the good stuff, and it doesn't get any easier. Your problems just change. So whatever step you're at, whatever level, don't give me this, once I get to blah, 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 blah. I can't stand when people say that, because nothing is going to change. Your level of happiness will not change when you make more money. Trust me. That's not what changes your level of happiness. So I just love the process of building companies. That's why I do it a lot. Those early days, filled with growth, and that's where the magic is really happening. You're coming up with stuff. We all love looking at, Jeff Bezos with the spray painted Amazon in that little office, right? Early days, losing money like crazy, or Mark Zuckerberg, or all these stories. Why do you love their early stories but not your own?
Dang.
So that's don't miss out on it. You're in some ways, your business is like your children. They're going to turn 16, 18, 25, 30, 40 someday, and you're going to miss them when they were 3.
Dang, that is so good. Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for that, Allan. That was a great kind of parting speech right there. And yeah, we'll wrap it up here. So where can people find you, learn more about you, and potentially work with you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to find, but I have a website, allandraper.com, and I'm active on social media. My handle, Instagram, is @RealAllanDraper.
Cool. And anywhere else people can connect with you? I think LinkedIn, Facebook.
Yeah, all socials, I'm there. So.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All of those will be linked in the description. And anything else you'd like to plug or mention?
No, that's it. I mean, I do have a book that's being released in a few months that I talk about all the sacrifices that are required to build a successful business that nobody told me about. And each one of the sacrifices has a corresponding blessing or benefit. So it's great for entrepreneurs that are thinking about starting a business, or those that have recently started. So because you'll notice them, you'll notice these sacrifices that are required. And if you read the book, that will give you motivation. Like, okay, I'm on the right path. Like, I thought my company was doomed and this is normal. I didn't know that those things were normal. I thought I was the only one going through them. And then I realized over and over again them happening to me and to my partners and to other people around me. And so it's a motivational book, like, hey, you got this, keep going, that type of book. And it's just designed to help young entrepreneurs scale their companies.
Awesome. Perfect. So everyone listening to this podcast should definitely go check out the book. You said it's going to be released in a few months, or do you have a date?
Yeah, it's going to be released. I think it's already done, but we're shooting for like an August 1st release date. It's called Pack Your Lunch. We'll be on Amazon, on my website. So.
Perfect. Awesome, man. Well, that's so cool. Congratulations on the book, and just congratulations on all the success, man. You're really crushing it in the pest control space. You're just doing so many cool things, and it's really cool to watch you grow, and it's really an honor to have you on the podcast here.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate that, brother.
Of course, man.